Which one is it?
112 on Erie Street, is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't know why we did that one, and they didn't want to spend it once a week. We did approve one.
Yeah, we did proof one, yeah, but it wasn't, it would include all of them.
Right. One. I think we did one. Because Angie sent that.
It feels like a Monday. Trust me, my day was like a Monday.
He was in the real world today, it was your mother.
What?
Ask Ian there, even when we get to it, he can tell you.
I don't remember anymore.
Does he do-
Because, oh my God.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. We can start with a moment of silence, please. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Domingo, you'll take a roll call for us, please.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Reed, Jackson,
Here.
Waller,
Here.
Davis,
Present.
French,
Here.
and Mayor Snyder.
Here. So just a reminder for everybody that's in the gallery, if you have a cell phone on you, you can turn it off or put it on silent. That would be appreciated. Do I have a motion to approve of our agenda?
So move.
Support. Any additions or deletions? All right, so we do have a pretty lengthy agenda with several presentations. So, yeah,
I think you voted on.
oh, I'm sorry. You had a motion and support, correct?
Motion and
Yes.
support.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you, Colin. On Zoom, we do have Dr. Shaheen, who is here to give us information in regards to the Big Albion Plan, the next step. Dr. Shaheen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time and opportunity to present this evening. I'm no stranger to Albion. Attended summer camp in Albion going way back to about 1974 and spent about a decade and a half between college and attending Albion Summer Adventure, and have been a fond memories of Albion and the city and what it has done for me as an individual. And about 10 years ago, began working on some efforts to help with the revitalization of Albion. I've got a fairly significant track record doing it in other parts of the state. And so we began a quest to attempt to help the city of Albion and its residents with revitalization. As all of you know, this has not been an easy a time to do things with 2.5+ years of COVID and now really difficult interest rate environment, as well as pricing for both labor and commodities. But I'm going to take you back a little bit. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Oh, my participant screen sharing is disabled. So the host disabled my participant screen sharing. So I don't know if you want me to share a screen. If not, I can keep going from.
We are working on that.
Just my mind, but
The one below, there you go.
Okay.
Multiple.
Yeah, you should have access now.
okay, great. Let me try it. No, it still says it's disabled.
She didn't click on multiple there.
On
Click,
Down arrow.
click. The up arrow.
Oh, I have that here.
There you go. Then hit multiple participants.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay, let's see if this will work. Oh, great. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, should be just the title page. Does that look right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, just going back to, now I'm frozen.
Try your down arrow.
There we go. I did. I've done a ton of these. It's working now. So going back about 10 years, I have had experience working in communities such as Saginaw and Bay City and Midland. We share several, at least in Saginaw in particular, we share a lot of the same issues with respect to the loss of manufacturing. So back, 10 years ago, we've had continued population decline and employment struggles with increased unemployment rates and high poverty rates. And we faced the same thing in Saginaw, only a much bigger community. Also, one of the reasons why I got involved was because of Albion College, a place that I hold near and dear to my heart. And the college has struggled with admissions for quite some time. And one of the statistics that really made a big difference to me was that, one of the reasons that young people and their parents choose a school is based on the campus visit and the town and what that town has to offer. So taking a look at all that, we followed basically the same playbook we did in Saginaw, and we had a lot of success here. At first, it wasn't particularly easy. This is all being done as a not-for-profit, so there's no profit motive for the people that are involved in this. Everything has been essentially donations to the charity which was started, which we're going to get to. And we had to try to pick a target area, and that target area was basically downtown and Superior Street, because there were a lot of blighted and underutilized structures, many of which, if we aren't successful, are going to run into their own issues with their useful life. Most of them have exceeded their useful life and are having structural issues that we're dealing with as we speak. So a big part of that is strategic planning, budgets, master plan, and vision. We wanted to really have an effort to make sure that all of the assets of Albion has a ton of assets, including the Kalamazoo River and a beautiful streetscape that's really quite nice, and many other communities would be envious to have. There have been Albion master plan presentations at the college, the City of Albion target plan, Advancing Albion Plan, all of which I've reviewed all the master plans for the City of Albion for probably the last 30 years, many of which had stated the same things, but not a lot got accomplished. So we're hoping that we can move this forward. And the use of these donated funds was to acquire properties, clear title, conduct environmental assessments, demolish some of the facilities that were uninhabitable and had to be redeveloped, like for the Courtyard Marriott, which happened to be a for-profit project, but the parcels were acquired from both the city and from Albion Reinvestment, which is the not-for-profit, because really it takes the assembly of sites in order to do a project like that. And the goal is to provide the properties at cost. So when the properties get redeveloped, the monies that come back to the charity can be used to do more of the good work. So these were a lot of the downtown Albion anchor projects that not all can be attributed to the work that Albion Reinvestment has done, but many of them can be either helpful to it or have contributed significantly. The exceptions to that would be Kids and Stuff and the BOEM, which obviously were there far before 2012. So we're really trying to provide these properties at cost to developers or end users. In this case, the Big Albion Plan, the developer will be the charity, with the hope that it'll be a self-sustaining entity going forward. So what is Albion Reinvestment? It's a 501c3 charitable organization. It was founded in 2015. It took us a few years to get the articles approved in the charitable status from the IRS. The mission statement is to combat community deterioration. And you can basically read my screen, but promote economic growth, employment, and development, unites all parties interested in redevelopment, advocates and helps to solve problems, identifies new construction or expansion opportunities. And we want to bring more money to Albion from other sources, either charitable support from other foundations or grants from either the state of Michigan or other supporters of economic redevelopment, and use all effective means to revitalize and sustain Albion. And the big thing is this isn't just about bricks and mortar. The goal is to provide residential opportunities as well as storefronts available to the local members of the Albion community in a way that they can be affordable. So the goal of the project is to actually develop commercial spaces that could be occupied by local businesses. And as all of you know, there are commercial spaces in strip malls and malls across this country, and especially across the Midwest, that are vacant. So we really tried to design an economic model that would allow for the residential to help to subsidize the commercial spaces and to keep the storefronts very small so that it can be affordable to local businesses. The board of Albion Reinvestment Corporation has several people that are known to you. I think myself, Pastor Amos, Mayola Duncan would be more of the local group, as well as Gary Black, who is the chief financial officer for the college. Jeff Ott, who's a partner with Warner Norcross, did a lot of the work to establish the charity and did it all in kind at no cost. And thus far, 100% of all donations, 100% has gone to this project, and there's been no cost associated with administration. All my work, everything else that's been done has all been done in kind and for free. Jeff Pethrick is a retired investment banker, financial manager, who is helping tremendously with the putting together the actual pro formas and working with outside investors to help the charity do its thing. So that's our board. Over the past 3 years, we developed a strategy, and it's been a little longer than that now, and known as the Big Albion Plan. Amy DePrez and others from the city have kind of been involved in the formulation of this for several years. When we first approached the MEDC about doing the project, initially it was called the Big Albion Plan because it was going to try to undertake a big part of the downtown all at once. Since then, the MEDC has had a bit of a change, and one of the reasons why I don't like to come in front of the city council until we're further along and have absolute approval is because I've never come to anybody and said we're going to do something and then not done it. So I'm doing this just to bring everybody up to speed, because I know that there are individuals that need to have this information in order to make decisions that will help the project. So at this point, we're still in the work in progress stage, and we do not have approval to get started yet. We've been thrown a little bit of a curveball with pricing of construction today. We're kind of redeveloping our pro formas. We were a couple of weeks away, and when the bids came in a little out of line with what the expectations were, we're working very diligently to bring it back to all of you as an approved project. And the project really at one time was going to be one big project. We're now broken it down to 3, and in this graphic it's 6, and it might wind up being done in 6 parts, or someplace between 3 and 6 parts, based on the investment that's required to do it, and the timing in which we wish to get it done. The good news is that all of this is doable. I've done it several times before. I've never done it for in a not-for-profit setting. So this is a completely different effort, because sometimes when you're doing it on your own, you can make things happen because it's your own investment. Trying to get other people to believe in what we're doing is a little bit more difficult than believing in it yourself and just taking the ball and running with it. But this could wind up being very, very substantial for downtown Albion. And long-term, what we've found is that initially, when there are benefits to the development, whether it's a obsolete property rehabilitation act where property taxes are fixed for a period of time, or other incentives that are given up by the city, the state, the county. What we found is that those that have taken advantage of the benefits tend to stay and be investors, and then the investors help to promulgate and create community, which is really what is needed in order to make sure there are multiple stakeholders and not just a charity that is doing this business. So we're excited. We remain very excited and believe that this project will go forward. And I hope that within the next 60 days, I'll come back and give you guys a very positive update as to where we are. And I entertain any questions from council or from any member of council that wishes to ask a question.
Any council members have questions for Dr. Shaheen?
I do.
Councilor Williams?
Thank you. Dr. Shaheen, currently, are you all planning to have any low to moderate income housing in those apartments?
At this point, there is no program for low to moderate income in those apartments, but they will be priced in order to make any of those projects work. We have to get close to market rent for the apartments. Otherwise, we're having enough trouble trying to get them rehabilitated because of the costs, even with approaching market rate on the apartments. So there isn't low income program for it currently. And I know that, across the state of Michigan, affordable housing is a big issue. And it's one that I know Albion faces, just like Saginaw does. And we are working right now in Saginaw on creating opportunities for affordable housing and low income housing. So I know that that's a key priority for many communities, and we'd certainly be willing to look at anything that you all have in terms of a program or any sort of state program that Albion is able to take advantage of, because there are incentives through ARPA and through others to be able to make those things happen. So if you have any interest in that, I can probably work with you to create. There's plenty of other sites that could be in close proximity to walkable downtown that could be created to help with low to moderate income housing.
All right.
Any other questions for Dr. Shaheen?
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Currently, do you guys have a end stakeholder in mind, somebody who will take over the development once it's completed?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Do you have a end user in mind, end stakeholder that will take over the development once it's completed?
Right now, there's a opportunity zone fund that is in discussions with us. I'm under a non-disclosure on that, but they invest all over Michigan, and so they would likely be the finance behind the project itself. They would have a right of first refusal on the transaction to sell, but we would be looking to sell it. The charity would be looking to sell it to another developer at some point, or end user. But right now, that is not something that we have, in the plans.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Shaheen? Dr. Shaheen, thank you for being with us this evening to give us that information on the plans.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Shawna Gamble, who is going to give us information on the lead grant programs. Thank you.
Thank you. So when I saw the agenda, I said, I'm not gonna put together a whole presentation
because I feel like if you guys have questions for me, or I can come back at a different time when you guys don't have so many things to work through. But most of you I have talked to before know me. My name is Shawna Gamble, and I work for the city of Battle Creek, and I oversee two separately funded lead abatement grants for the county. One is funded through CHIP Medicaid, and the other is funded through HUD. Some updates for us. I mean, I know we've talked about like what exactly it is that we might do. I think with Flint, we think of lead and we think of water. But I think what's really important for us to know as community members, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, is that lead poisoning usually comes through lead-based paint, which was in just about everyone's home until 1978. So if your home was built before 1978, the likelihood that you have some sort of lead-based paint in your home is high. And also, it only takes a very small amount of lead-based paint that can poison a child. And then there's lifelong ramifications because unfortunately it can't be reversed. There's mitigation measures such as like mental health services and also diet. However, it's with the child for the rest of their lives. So that's why Medicaid stepped in, because obviously they're paying for a lot of it on the back end and they can put some money up front to try for prevention. So with the CHIP grant, we have $1.5 million a year. We got our first grant 2017, 2018. It was supposed to be for 5 years. We were one of the very first grantees, and we are actually getting ready to start our 6th year. So the money is still there, which is awesome. And then at the end of 2020, we also received a HUD Led Abatement Grant. So that's like $3 million for lead abatement by itself. And it also includes $400,000 for healthy homes issues, which you might want to think of like trip fall hazards or accessibility in homes, things like that. The CHIP grant actually has given us about a $35,000 per year healthy homes addition. So there are some things we can do if we're abating someone's home and their porch, you know, the steps might be messed up, we might be able to fix that for them. Or if there's, you know, grandma or grandpa's living in the house and there's an accessibility issue with the bathroom, we might be able to help with that as well. Also simple things like furnace and water heater, that's something we can use healthy homes funds for. But the family would have to be qualified for a lead abatement program. Pretty simple qualifications for the CHIP lead grant. Basically, you just have to have a child or a pregnant woman that visits your home or lives in your home that's on Medicaid. Your home has to be built before 1978 and it has to be in Calhoun County. There are no income requirements for that program. If you meet those qualifications, we will come do a really big risk assessment on your house, test all the surfaces, find out if there's lead and get it out. The HUD abatement program is a little bit different. So it kind of provides access to sort of middle income families. So like if you're not necessarily, you don't necessarily have families that are on Medicaid, but you are somewhere between very low to moderate income, you might qualify for the HUD Led Abatement Program. We make that determination in our office. We have one site on the form. There's a QR code. So if anyone has questions about that, you scan that, it takes you right to our website. And you fill out your application there as well. So like all the information you might want to know about leads on that site, your application's on that site, and we basically do all of our communication through that application portal as well. And just a couple updates. So since 2018, we did our first project in Albion in November of 2018, we finished our first project. And since then, we have spent $3.34 million just on construction. So not including, you know, all of the other things that go along with it. And in Albion, we've spent $1.15 million and we've done 29 projects in Albion. Most of them have been on the northwest side of Michigan Avenue. However, we've worked with families from Irwin to Cooper Street. Like we've worked all over the community. And that's also something I think that got Haley and Ian interested in having conversations with us because of the requirements that you all have for your lead service line replacement. So we have some collaboration that we can do for that. We have been in discussion about that. So I'm sure that'll probably be coming out to you all at some point soon. So far this year, we've done 12 projects. We plan on ending the year with 17 projects. And we will have spent about $560 or $560,000, I'm sorry, in Albion this year on lead abatement projects and also healthy homes. So we've been able to do everything from whole home windows and siding to furnaces and water heaters and fixing porches and providing families with children who have been exposed to lead with a safe place for them to be. And I think that's it. That's all I have for now. But I know that Haley has talked about this a couple of times. So if there's anything that you have questions for me about right now, based on what you've heard from me or from her, I would be glad to answer them.
So you allow renters to apply for this?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and the renter would be the applicant. So if a landlord had a property that they wanted someone to apply for, they'd have to have the applicant apply. We do get permission from the landlord before we do any work. But there is no home ownership requirement. There's no length of time in the home requirement, none of that.
Awesome. Now, so if the council members kind of want to get this out to their constituents, can they use your email address at the end at the bottom?
It's on the website. So yeah.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
double check.
Yep. And it actually will go to, I believe now it's been changed to our intake specialist, but mine is fine. One of the three of us in the office will be helping, so it doesn't matter yet. It's fine.
So are you willing to make visits when we have precinct meetings or something like that? Or will you just give us the?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so I didn't mention that I've also been working with Erin Lewis, who many of you know, senior at Albion College, lifelong Albion resident. And she has gotten very interested in lead poisoning, specifically in Albion, and how it may be affecting her children. Also, most of you know that I'm on the school board, so I kind of see like both ends of this issue in a way that a lot of people don't. So those are the conversations that we've been having. And she is, if I can't come somewhere or our intake specialist can't come somewhere, Erin will definitely come. So one of the three of us will be somewhere, anywhere you need us around
Are
the
you
county.
working with PTO at Harrington?
I have not been able to get connected. But if you're able to help me do that, I would appreciate it.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions from council?
Want to say thank you. I think
Amen.
this is something that, everyone should know about, and the more we can get it out there, the better it's going to be, because Albion's numbers are high.
They are. The number of lead poisoned children in Albion are relatively high, second in the county. And also, I believe it's like 94% of Albion's housing stock was built before 78. So
Right.
it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Mhm. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes.
And you
awesome.
you have my direct number and my direct email address. So if you need anything from me, feel free to ask.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Welcome. Yes. All right, next up, we have Diana, right, from our DNR to give us information on some remediation options.
Hi.
Evening.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me tonight. So I'm Matt Diana. Got it right. I'm the fisheries biologist for the Department of Natural Resources for Southwest Michigan. So I manage the waterways, basically the rivers and the lakes all throughout the southern part of the state, which includes like the Kalamazoo River running through Albion. And I've been working with the city quite a bit on the future plans for the dam. And we had a meeting, public meeting at the park about a month ago now. And I met a number of people who are concerned about vegetation issues that are happening upstream of the dam. Including Councilwoman Jackson, who invited me today. And I'm basically here to give you some information on different ways you can use dealing with those issues. So basically there's two types of programs for aquatic, what we call aquatic nuisance species. They can be native species that are causing problems for recreation, or they can be invasive species that are just causing problems because of ecological problems that are associated with non-native vegetation in our system. So the Albion Dam causes this issue in the Kalamazoo River because it blocks the flow, it slows the flow down, captures sediment,
that sediment just builds up over time. And probably think people who've been down for a long time kind of see that reservoir shallowing up, especially on the upstream area. And that's real conducive to growing vegetation, especially lily beds and things like that that really do well. It's actually really good for wild rice too, which is one of the reasons there's really good wild rice populations upstream near the college there, where they've done some kind of planting work. So unfortunately, in the state of Michigan, most of the weed kind of treatment options fall on the private user. Or if there's a municipality involved, they can also kind of fund that through a number of different mechanisms. There are some grants available to do that work, but they're primarily focused on invasive species work, and, because that's where you really see the benefit to the ecology of the impoundment. So, the property that kind of brought to my attention is the recreational property, public park. I would be on the west bank of the river there, upstream of Vickery Dam. And so I know it's a city-owned property, at least part of it is. There's also a neighborhood there. The way most say, this is mostly common taken care of on a lake association, basically a lake-wide basis where there's boating issues, there's beach issues, things like that. In those cases, usually private citizens associate through a lake association or a township board of some sort to pay for treatment options. There's a couple different treatment options. One is manual removal through cutting or diver assisted suction, where you actually are physically removing the vegetation. Then there's kind of like a more traditional herbicide or algicide treatments, which are chemicals. These chemicals are approved for water use. They do have some downsides as far as things like invertebrate communities, things like that. But for the most part, they're approved and safe for use in our waterways. So you don't have to worry about drinking water or swimming, except for like slight contact periods after chemicals are applied, like a day or two for the most case. There is some limitations on things like using the water to irrigate farms and gardens, things like that. There's an herbicide in there that could affect the upland vegetation too. So, options for, because the state doesn't do this work and we don't fund it privately in Michigan, the options are really you generally are tax assessments that are done either through the city or either through it could be done through other funding sources you might have. It's not generally very expensive, but it's not a kind of thing, it's a one-time thing. It's an every year treatment kind of. You might be able to knock it back a little bit in some areas, but generally those vegetations come back and it's kind of more of a maintenance. It's not a removal. So if there's interest in doing it, likely taking that on for the duration of the impoundment being in place. The nice thing is, if the city eventually moves towards removing Victory Dam, that'll narrow the system up and start moving the water again, and it should take care of a lot of the vegetation issues. So, but the question was really, what do we do in the meantime for the recreation at that site? So for the most part, I mean, that's the general kind of outline. I guess for the most part, I'm here to answer any questions you all have about different options and different techniques.
So you were saying that the DNR doesn't do this, so it would fall on the city of Albion to fund any type of remediation?
It can be private citizens. A lot of people will pay for their own river, like lakefront on lake, if they own a property on a lake. It can be done by the owner of the dam. It can be done by whoever, as long as there's landowner permission, or whoever owns the property there, it can be done, funded through a variety of different sources like that. So whether it's privately or through tax assessment or through some other type of municipal funding, that's kind of the sources.
So I know that you have been working with Mayor Pro Tem Jackson in regards, it's Barnes Park, correct?
Yeah, that's
So-
the portion that really needs to be taken
So
care
in
of.
regards to that section, you have a ballpark figure or guesstimate as to how much it would cost to do some type of remediation for that area?
I don't have good numbers. So usually you'll hire a company that would do the kind of spraying, someone who has a pesticide applicator license. Right, I'm sorry, a pesticide, herbicide applicator license, which you need a special license to do it in the aquatic system. So they price it usually by the amount of chemical employed, and there's some limitation. So Eagle regulates it. So there is a permit required to do it. It's a permit that we Eagle and then DNR review to make sure there's not any environmental impacts. There's limitations if it's native vegetation on how much area can be treated, because vegetation is fish habitat and invertebrate habitat. So we but if it's a residential or a community area or a area that's recreated, usually those limitations are bigger than the area you want to treat. So in general, and I don't know the total size of the acreage. I haven't measured it out yet or gotten on site to do a lot of work there. But in general, it's probably like $1,000 type of thing, a couple $1,000. Depends on how many times they think you need to treat it here, and the kind of on what chemicals they decide to think are the most applicable to those plant species.
So will the DNR recommend, like, companies or individuals will have that certification to apply to herbicides?
Yeah, there's several around. They're pretty easy to find. Actually, a vast majority of treatments in the area are done by 3 or 4 companies. And yeah, we can put the city in touch with those different groups to make an assessment. They can come out, give you a much more definite price than what I'm doing. Since we don't do it ourselves, I don't have a lot of experience with what the pricing would be, other than I kind of know what lake associations are paying on a larger scale project. And it can add up, it can get expensive, but for the most part, like a good example, people, the city of Marshall and the city of Allegan do treatments above their dam in small areas, and I don't think those are very extensive treatment. It won't cost a whole lot.
Councilman Reed?
I know back in I think it was the early 70s, they had down at the end of Highland Ave, where all the things are now, the lily pads. They had a thing come in that just took them out of the water and cleaned all of it out. And it's stayed clean for a long time. And now someone was saying that if you took the dam down, that the water from up in that area up there would begin to come in like this instead of staying out where it is. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. You can kind of picture what the river looks like upstream and downstream of the impoundment. We actually use that to design the channel going through that impound, where the impoundment is now. So the water would get drawn down, it would get brought in. We designed a channel to keep it, and we designed what was the impoundment bottom as floodplain or kind of natural upland areas. And what that would do is it would keep the flow moving in the channel to the point that sediment doesn't build up. You don't have that deposition, and then the
What happens if you have the river dredged there to tear out the things and to get the river deeper so that the water flows?
Yep, you could do, and that's what a lot of people are doing. If let's say we knew the reservoir was going to stay in place long term, you could dredge a channel through the middle. It's temporary fix because it'll continue to refill, but it will help kind of move sediment through that section. The problem is the shoulders or the areas that you don't dredge will still have that vegetation and likely even get worse, because that's where the sediment starts to drop out when you dredge a channel through there. So yeah, it would be an effect, but in the method you're talking about, like a weed harvester or weed cutter, they can almost use like a farm style reaper.
Because I know it used to be a lot out there, but when they cleaned it out, and it's been out for a long time, but when they cleaned it out, the river stayed wide, the water moved better. They used to even have a boat, like a ferry boat thing that used to go up between there and the bridge. And, I was just thinking, it would really be nice to be able to keep the river wide like that, because it's a beautiful river. And I can understand what you mean about, fixing it up for the park and everything. But, and people used to fish down there. In fact, I grew up in that area. They still fish. And,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Cutting the weeds will speed the water up a little. The weeds are slowing it down. It's probably not going to do it quite as well as it did in the past, because there's more, it's gotten shallower through time. So it's probably going to continue to kind of be slow from that extra sediment upstream. But yeah, if you mechanically took it out with dredging or something like that, it would flow better, and it would kind of be a semi.
I guess what I'm really trying to understand is, okay, if you take if you take the dam out, but you still got those lily pads and things up here.
Mhm.
How is the water gonna flow any better or be any deeper?
Sure.
Or,
Sure. Yeah, so I think how I could do this with my hands, but the dam basically was put in place on the river bottom, and the slope of the river is like this. Now it's filled up with sediment and come up through time. And that sediment comes all the way up into the upper end of the reservoir and fills up. So when we take the dam down, if we take the dam down, that channel will be deeper than it is now. We'll design it deeper, but if what doesn't get designed deeper will actually wash out through a process we call head cutting. So you're actually going to drop the elevation of the river to a certain extent. Those weed flats will become the banks of the river instead. Whether we design it that way very actively or we let kind of natural processes take place, just depends on funding and what kind of habitat work we would do with the dam. Well, it'd still be a wide river. I mean, the Kalamazoo River is, 200 feet wide in average all the way through this section. In places maybe not that wide. That's more of a downstream side, but it'd still be a wide river. But that would be a flowing river at that point. It would take care of some of those problems you have with those kind of wider vegetated areas. It would change the way it looks for sure. It wouldn't be pond. It would be a flowing river like it is upstream up there.
And if you want to see an example of that, if you went over to 12 Mile Road in Ceresco, you could see where they took the dam out over there and what it looks like now compared to what it was prior to that
12-mile road.
in Ceresco. Just north of,
Yeah.
yeah, just south of Michigan Avenue.
I came through there yesterday. I come through often. I
Yep.
looked at that. And it's beautiful out through there, but the river is still wide. It does not have
Mhm.
lily pads and stuff
Yep.
like this one has.
Right.
And
That's-
that's why I'm just
right.
wondering,
Yeah,
what's gonna happen with those lily pads? Are they gonna continue to fill up there with the water going down further, faster?
and Ceresco is a good example because that's an after we took that dam out. Beforehand, it had the same problem with lily pads up in the
Well,
upper end.
did the lily pads go away when you took the dam out?
Yeah, if you design it that way, they will, because lily pads don't like flowing water. The parts of the channel where you're seeing lily pads now probably won't be part of the channel after we design it.
It'll be dry ground.
Yes.
It'll be grass.
Yep, so the park will gain space. It'll come in because the water will drain as we take the dam out. And that channel that we design will intentionally be designed the right size to keep that water flowing. And that keeps lily pads out because they like that you can picture where they are now. It's maybe not stagnant, it's not the right, but slow moving, shallow with a real muddy bottom. And compared to the rest of the river, which is a gravel rocky bottom, but where the water is flowing, that's what we'll hope to expect and design to build in that spot.
And with the dam being out, fishing would be better too as well. 'Cause the fish can-
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially the type of fishing, there's some species, carp, panfish that are much more, they much more like the reservoir type of habitat, but smallmouth bass and pike, which are the big main fishery on the river there, they really benefit from a free flowing river that they can move through. So we'd expect fishing to increase quite a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I would assume because the dam assessment would probably take a while for us to
Yes.
have done in return, but if Mayor Pro Tem Jackson can stay in communication with Matt to get at least some names, we might be able to get some estimates to see if it's feasible for us to be able to, put that in and at least get some of those rivers
Yeah.
more cleaned up.
Yes. Well, when we take the dam out, can we take some of those trees down along the park? We got old trees and in the water that's just blocking up the whole thing. So you can't canoe, you can't,
Councilman
you
French,
can do about anything.
It was my understanding, maybe the rules have changed, but in years past, we were told that that we can't intervene in removing down trees and other wildlife from the river. And yet what we're describing is in fact just
Sure.
that. So which one is correct?
Yeah, and there is a permit process, and just like there is for down trees, you can remove down trees, but it has to be done through proper permitting. It depends on how it is. A down tree that falls, that isn't embedded in the bank or anything like that, that can be removed if it's debris. If it's, If it's built into the bank or it's rooted in the bank and it actually causes like excavation in order to remove it, that requires some permitting. Permitting that can be got, but it takes a little bit. And the aquatic nuisance control group in Eagle does permitting, and there's a series of permits that are just easy to get. If you treat this way, you get a general permit. You don't even have to apply for it. It's just something you could download. If it's a more complicated treatment or a really big area, you will have to go through the aquatic nuisance control treatment process. But because there's so much lobbying from big lake association owners and lakefront owners in Congress, it's actually a much easier process than it is to get like environmental permitting when it comes to things that are construction related compared to vegetation treatment. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a very bad process, and the company you hire will do all of that for the city. It's just really, then their prices would include that. It would include permitting, it would include all kinds of like notification that have to happen, all the chemicals dealing with us and notification with us. So it's a pretty streamlined process.
Cause I saw a quick question. So yesterday they were out there canoeing. And
Okay.
it was beautiful
Yeah.
and the river was clear and everything. It used to be that way either, but now it is. And so they can have a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Nice to have that here.
Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you for being here to help answer.
Thank you so
No
much,
comments.
and I will be in contact with you.
Okay, next we do have individuals from our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force.
Right. Good evening, council. I believe y'all have slides. So we are members of the Equity Task Force. I'm here with Mr. Arnold, with Ms. Lemieux, and Councilwoman Davis is also on the task force. Clearly there was an important socio-political moment, right, that motivated the city to establish the task force. We do have some concerns, not formally as a task force, because we haven't been able to meet with quorum. But as residents who happen to be members of the task force, that we'd like to submit to council in hopes that we can move these conversations along and be more effective in our work. Next slide, please. So the city of Albion, as you know, established an equity task force on December 2nd, 2020. Members have attempted to meet on May 26th, June 23rd, July 7th, and August 24th, but we've yet to meet quorum because one of the members is ill. So on June 22nd, we requested the following from the city manager. There's 4 items listed there. Finalized redistricting map, precedents for how key terms in the charge were defined, tax survey results and other related data to conceptualizing equity in our city, and segments of the charter that might reference or are relevant to policing that we might not be able to identify through a keyword search. Next slide. So our concerns are few, but they are important and core to the work that we might be able to do. We're concerned about how members are screened and appointed. We're concerned about a lack of administrative support. We have experienced a lack of clarity in interpreting the charge. And we're not sure of the mechanisms through which the task force advises, recommends, or counsels that's taking language from the charge, Albion City Council and the city manager on relevant matters. 2 of our requests weren't honored in a timely fashion. That's inclusive of the precedents for how key terms in the charge were defined and that segments of the charter that reference or are relevant to policing that we might not be able to identify through a keyword search. Those requests were not met. And we were informed after following up on that request for data that we're responsible for our own data collection and research. Next slide. Now, all of that is technically okay, but we do want to draw your attention to the fact that it was unclear as we were recruited, as we submitted our applications, and as we were appointed of the scope of work that the task force would need to lead. So we do have 3 requests of you as council, 4 technically, 1 that's not on the slide. So that 4th request that's not written is the next time we're able to come together, we're going to invite all of you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. for attending. Thank you, Councilwoman Davis, for your interest in the work. We will be inviting all of you to attend the next meeting so we can share some of our thoughts and have a better sense from each of you which aspects of policy and procedure might warrant our attention. And then for the 3 that are written here, we're hoping that you can help us raise awareness about the task force by actively recruiting applicants from your precinct during publicly advertised precinct meetings. We're hoping that a designated and informed city employee can be assigned to support the task force with scheduling, requests for data, and elaboration on the charge. And again, we wouldn't necessarily be asking this person to lead any research efforts, but relevant city data, we might not have access to it. So we would appreciate someone who was informed and capable of responding to those requests in a timely fashion. And by timely in this instance, I do mean less than 8 weeks. And that current and future members would receive training appropriate to the charge, including but not limited to a review of related city policies and procedures, readings or materials that support understandings of racial equity, and information on appropriate accommodations for members with limited digital access or digital literacy. This is particularly important as one of our task force members is homebound now. So if we aren't able to Zoom that person in, recognizing that they won't be able to vote, they can't participate in task force proceedings at all. So I could go on and on about this forever. I could even sing songs that were related, but I know you have a very long agenda, so I won't do that now. Those are our requests. Please be looking for that invitation to the next meeting that we're able to have. And please do encourage members of your precinct to consider applying for the Equity Task Force. I've been appointed since May, and we haven't been able to meet or do any of the necessary work to support all of you and the important work that you do. And we'd love to get that started. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. So we do have a question from Councilman Friday.
So given the delays in getting action from the city, can you send me a copy of the charge since I was not on council beforehand? So
I definitely can. And thank you, all of you, because you did vote affirmatively to extend our term and extend the task force. We do appreciate that, but extending it into perpetuity won't be helpful if we can't meet with quorum. So we do appreciate the support that we've been given today. Councilman Williams.
Okay, I have a question for city attorney. Is there something that we need to do on our end to help to support the task force?
Well, I think that's realistically a determination that you as a council need to make. I don't know that that's a legal question. I mean, there's, I guess it's a matter of perspective. I mean, as it relates to some of the things that were outlined, if council wants to amend the existing ordinance to add that the city manager or designee works in conjunction to whatever degree with the task force, that's certainly council's prerogative. Some of the other things I don't know that can really be addressed. I mean, how members are appointed is, I mean, every board and commission you have in the city is done in the same way. It's nominated by the mayor and approved by the council, and there's certain requirements that everybody has to meet, so that that's kind of just, it is what it is. So I mean, I don't know if there's anything specific you had in mind, but
Okay, so as far as the employee that would be designated right now is probably going to be the city manager, right?
well, you know, all of the subordinate employees answer to the city manager. So what I think probably the appropriate way to go about it would be to say that, you know, the city manager or the designee. And so you leave it open so that the city manager can designate whatever employee is appropriate to maybe work with the task force, because depending upon the subject matter, it may be a different employee. I mean, if we're talking about something relating to public safety, Chief Kip might be the appropriate entity. If we're talking about certain records that the city might hold, it might be the clerk. If we're talking about code enforcement, it might be our director of planning. Actually, that's under you now. If we're talking about like zoning or something, or master plan, it might have to do with our director of planning, you know. Right. So it could be a variety of people. So I think what makes the most sense is you start at the top and just say them or a designee. Okay. Because obviously the manager is probably not going to attend every meeting because she's spread thin.
Sounds good. So we need to amend the resolution that was.
It's an ordinance, so it has to go through the whole ordinance process.
Okay. All right. Well,
We need to amend that.
Councilman French.
So just as relative new to this. When the original task was created, the charge was created. Was that created by this council?
It was not
So who was it created by?
the former council.
It was a prior council.
Yes. Can you,
The word by council.
Right, but it was written by a council member and then approved by council.
Right.
So if there are clarity questions, then does the authority in interpreting that fall on the task force to define or on the council to define? Or a lawyer to define?
That would, it would fall on the, if we're talking about what duties you're designating to the, because it's titled as an equity task force, but in reality, what it is a citizens advisory board pursuant to our charter. And so when it was created, it was initiated by resolution and then created by ordinance. The council set forth some fairly broad goals and objectives that it wanted the advisory board to address. If it would be helpful for the equity task force if council amended or narrowed or detailed or expounded upon those, that would be incumbent on this council. And that could be part of the amendment where you talk about adding the city manager. So what I would suggest in terms of addressing that is schedule this for a future discussion item. Maybe you can talk about, here's how we want to refine the duties, objectives, so on and so forth. And then once you have that, we can just do it all as one amendment to the existing ordinance.
Okay. I just want to figure out what our
Let me, if I may,
steps are.
if I may.
Thank you.
Look here, this is way too complicated. I mean, we three people short. We represented, we got all but 2 precincts represented, the 6th and the 1st. And we got seven positions open, so we need 3 people. Now, we can all, this can all be discussed later, but we got to get the board seated first before any of this get forward. So I would just, it's simple. Just go to someone in your precinct that you know well, that's going to be fair and equitable. Ask them, would they please join the board so we can get this going, because like I said, it's necessary and it's going to be necessary with the issues that we're going to be facing later on. So I think it's very important that we seat the board as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Wall.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank Mr. Arnold for representing the 4th precinct. We appreciate you.
Thank you for asking. You did, yeah, you did, yes, thank you.
We will, and it might be better for Ms. Domingo to circulate the charge. So Councilman French asked for the charge for the task force. So it might be better for you to send it out just to make sure that we are all learning from the same document, that we know that we're having the same conversation. But I'm also more than willing to do that. So, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
It
you.
may be worth, for those of us who were not on, I see the resolution itself, as it was approved by the council.
Wait, you're allowed to use a computer?
say one looking at the phone, another looking at the.
Start in the minutes.
Yes, it's on the website, it's on the UNS.
And then the ordinance. And they're both on the website. Under city government? Is it under city government? Or is it- I'll find it.
It's
I
there.
thought it was easy.
All right. No one, other questions? All right, so next we have our public hearing on the CDBG funding for the 110-114 East Erie. That will. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ian. Skip right over you. I know, so sorry.
He stood up.
So we are getting information or update on the rental certification from Director Arnold.
This will be real brief. Per goals set by council when I was hired on by the city, we have been working towards a rental certification ordinance to create a registry of all rental properties in the city and a schedule under which all of those properties are inspected. Where we are at with that right now, the purpose of me being here tonight is that we are going to be holding one more subcommittee meeting of the rental certification subcommittee of council. That's going to be on Monday, the 12th, I believe 9 a.m. I think in true Ian fashion, I might have sent you all that invitation 8 days, 10 days prior. So hopefully we're good on your calendars for that. Just briefly, so this ordinance is going to, if adopted, establish a registry of rental properties, help us ensure that no property is leased, let, rented, otherwise traded for without a certificate of compliance and certificate of occupancy. 42% of properties in the city of Albion are not owned by the people who live in them. That has drastic long-term complications for our budget. And more importantly, the quality of life of our residents. This is kind of one piece of that pie that we're taking a stab at first is this rental certification program. Grand Rapids, East Lansing, Midland, Portland, Bay City, Holland, Waterford Township, and Ypsilanti Township all have a rental certification program. And from what I've seen, have been running it for several years. It all looks pretty much the same municipality to municipality. So it's something that there's a lot of external support for, which is something they're absolutely in need of in a community like ours. After that subcommittee meeting on the 12th, I'm working with the city attorney's office to make sure we have a decent near final or final draft of that ordinance. And we are optimistically looking at the 2nd September or 1st October council meeting to bring it before the council as a whole. That is where we're at with it right now. I know that there have been a lot of concerns raised regarding the city looking at this ordinance. I know that at least 2 occasions in the last decade prior to my being here, an ordinance like this has been attempted. I know there's a lot of maybe complicated feelings on a lot of sides about this. I'd be more than happy to use my time to help anyone understand what we're trying to do here and why we're trying to do it. My office is open. You really best catching me with an email or a voicemail. My coworkers will attest. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them tonight.
Do we have any questions for Director Arnold? Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, now we have our public hearing for the CDBG grant for 110-114 East Erie Street. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing at 8:03 p.m. So at this time, if anybody is in the gallery that would like to speak on this, they have opportunity to stand.
Good evening, Linda Lanu, 1102 East Michigan Avenue. I wanted to briefly comment on the Community Development Block Grant and the basis through which we are eligible to qualify for these funds, which we've received in numerous occasions in the past. Knowing that though the eligibility is dependent upon people who are living with low to moderate incomes in our city, I'm curious how the use of these funds will go to benefit the people who are living with low to moderate incomes in our community.
Anybody else like to stand and address council for this item? Do we have anybody on? I will go ahead and close public hearing at 8:05 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-29 to authorize community development block grant for the rental rehabilitation for 110-114 East Erie Street?
So moved.
Support.
have anybody who's going to address that topic or? Ian? Thank you.
Sorry, I just didn't know if you wanted me. So the Erie Street Apartments LLC has been working with the city and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to apply for this community development block grant. It is the rental rehab program that the MEDC has. Requirement of that program is that they withhold a certain number of the units for low to moderate income as set by the county in which the funds are being dispersed. What is happening here is that the city is accepting $400,000 from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to match towards $263,000, no, 263. Yep, $263,000 that the developer has put towards this rehabilitation. So we've been working with the developer and the state office kind of with the sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly meetings for better part of a year now. This is going to help transform what you might know as the Food Hub building into some updated commercial space with 4 studio apartments on the second floor, I believe 3 of which are reserved for that low to moderate income threshold price limit. I'd be happy to take any questions you have. Staff is recommending approval, accepting this $400,000.
Any questions from council? Councilman Williams.
Okay, so 3 of the 4 units, so 75% of the units will be used for low to moderate income. The time frame, do you remember the time frame?
Like how long they're held?
As low to moderate income?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, I believe in the application that we reviewed, it said 5 years.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so now there may be other requirements that have to be met due to CDBG, but we don't currently have those in front of us, right? Yeah. All right, thank you.
So when you say low to moderate income, will you specify Albion community or maybe Albion college students may want to rent that? Building, would that fall under the category of low or moderate income?
The low to moderate income number is something that I believe counties set individually.
So the Albion resident, well, and someone who lives in Albion.
Or moves down.
Moves to Albion.
Yes, I mean, I don't believe it puts restrictions on who they may rent to. It holds the unit at a specific price point.
Okay.
No, the college students can't.
They can't.
They are residential campus, yeah.
Do we have any other questions for Director Arnold? All right, City Clerk Domingo.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
French.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the Oprah certification?
You're
Sorry.
gonna do a second public hearing in your Oprah.
Oh, sorry. So at this point, I will go ahead and open public hearings for the Oprah rehabilitation certificate at 8:09 p.m. We have anybody in gallery that would like to stand and address council in regards to that item? You just give us your name and address.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Randy Burek. I live at 808 North Superior Street. I'm here this evening about that particular proposal. And I'd like to urge every one of you to unanimously vote no. We can't afford it. Every other item that's come before you tonight, you've asked what the price of everything is. Nobody asked what the price of giving. It's a 12-year, I believe, 12-year freeze on property taxes. That's a lot of money. I guess I'll have to just start with that. Once that project's done, I'd imagine it's probably going to be worth somewhere in the $9 million range. And I don't do taxes. I don't know the numbers. But I just kind of think that before you all vote and give someone 12 years, now, I'm sorry, someone, it's a nonprofit, I understand that. But giving them 12 years of a frozen taxes, I believe is the way it works. For getting properties fixed up and ready to sell, I just don't agree with it. I believe that we've spent the last 6 to 9 years paying for those properties. We just went to the voting booth and we raised our taxes because our streets are bad. Our streets are really bad, need fixed. And the city doesn't have the money to fix them. Once these buildings are done, I mean, like I said, I could tell you numbers, but I would be guessing. That's all I would be doing. But $1 million a building, figure out what the tax base is. I came up with about $31,500 a building is what they should be taxed at. That's about $283,000 per building per year. So it adds up to a lot of money. And if you vote yes, and you give this corporation this break, you can't take it back. You can never say, well, we decided we only want to do 10 years. You can't take it back. If you say no, you can run the numbers, please run the numbers. Tell me what it's going to cost taxpayers, because we're the ones that have to pay for it. Okay. Your salaries are based upon, I mean, you're paid by the taxes. I'm a retired federal employee. Your federal taxes pay my salary for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. Somebody needs to pay taxes. And I just feel that we've been carrying this for, I mean, I think they pay $35,000 a year in taxes for those 9 buildings right now. $4,000 a building. And I understand they're in bad shape. I don't have the total history, but when they're done in 13 months, the buildings will be worth $1 million a piece on average. That's $9 million. What would the city do with the taxes as they would get to that? Maybe you wouldn't have to come to me in another 3 years and say, we need to renew this millage for our streets. That costs us $675,000 a year, I believe, the first year, the millage for the streets. I don't know how I'm doing on time, and I'm really sorry. I'm rambling. I should have written this down, but I beg you, please vote no. Next month, after you get the numbers and you look and you explain to everybody in Albion that it's well worth it to allow them to not pay $3 million, whatever the price is, the tax break that it ends up being. If it's worth it, fine. But if you vote yes tonight, you can't take it back. You can never do that. Taxes are forever, tax breaks are forever. 12 years. I myself, I look at the public act, I've read the public act, the Oprah Act. And to me, it says you own buildings and you're going to remodel them. And you have to take your tenants out. You're going to lose money for the next 2 years while you fix your building. This is made to help you. You had to pay your taxes for those 2 years. You've not made a cent on your building. You had to take your tenants and move them out. You pay $35,000 a year in taxes on your 9 buildings. What is the harm to that person for the 13 months while they're basically remodeling it? Can I remodel my house and get 10 years of tax break? Sorry, I can't. I really feel that you need to say no. If for no other reason than to look at it, review it, you can always say yes next month. But if you say yes now, you can't come back and take it back. Everything else tonight, you've asked, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? Maybe it's not a cost if you don't charge them a tax. I look at it as a cost. That is potential money to this city. The city will never have. I think my 3 minutes is up. And I think over that.
You have anybody else in the gallery that would like to stand and address council in regards to this item?
Close the public hearing.
And close public hearing at 8:15 PM. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2022-30 for the Oprah certificate application for the Albion Reinvestment Corporation?
So moved.
Support.
And Ian, are you going to address council on this as well?
So we have used our obsolete property rehabilitation district a couple times in the past. We used just last month for another piece of property, that Erie Street property that we just approved the CDBG funding for. Staff's recommendation is, and will continue to be, that we approve this exemption. I can't speak for board members of our, the folks who have done the in-kind work in terms of drawing, grant management. I can't speak for any of them. What I can say is that more than likely, don't grant this exemption. It's going to be one of two things. We're either going to be looking at maybe having this project happen again a few years down the road, or that will probably deflate the project sufficiently for it to not be worth it. It would require more donation from the investors who've already been donating, like you saw in the presentation this evening, since 2015. I can certainly understand concerns that residents have about 12 years is a long time. One of the things that is crucial to understanding the aim that the developer has in this project is what is one of the things he said in his presentation, which is their goal is to get these buildings self-sufficient or to a different end user. If I buy a building that has an Oprah certificate exemption on it, I have to reapply as the new owner of that for that certificate with the state of Michigan. That's crucial information I think you should have for starting this. I got that from a meeting with the folks at the state responsible for this, so I figured it was important to pass that on to you if I hadn't said it already. If and when properties change hands, which over 12 years, I'm sure at least one of these will, they have to reapply if they want that exemption, which would mean it would come back here with someone else asking for that exemption, justifying it to you. The exemption itself, as I'm sure you're familiar with now, freezes the property value, whatever they're paying now, their property taxes at whatever they're paying now, and allows them that time to recoup the costs. I've not crunched the numbers on 12 years of where the building value and assessed value may go and what will happen to those buildings if the Big Albion Plan does not redevelop them, and haven't guessed at how much they might be and what revenue we might miss out on or might gain. This is a tool in our toolbox. We copied our toolbox from what the state said was a good idea. Other communities do this. It's our recommendation that we do this.
Do we have any questions for Director Arnold? Mayor Pro Tem Jackson?
Yes, we already approved how many years it was done, so it went up to how many years?
So an Oprah exemption can be granted for 1 to 12 years.
1 to 12, okay. So
The last
12.
one we most recently awarded, I believe, was 10. This one is asking for 12. So they're applying not for one parcel, but for the 9 parcels, 101, 103, 105, 109, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. I think that was tonight.
Yeah.
So it's those 9 parcels. Any one of those parcels, if sold or if removed from it, could be exempt. So did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Yes. I mean, because I've seen it here already on one of them, because I did look at it thoroughly. The approximate was 79,000 taxes, whatever. So, okay, thank you, because I did look at that already.
And if I recall right, we approved an Oprah on the hotel property when that was done. Was it an Oprah? Oh, okay. I was thinking. It was
Because
the
I'm
hotel.
saying, because back then you didn't have that,
Well, the hotel has a tax exemption.
The hotel was a brownfield.
A brownfield but that was for 8 years, and that's just about up now.
But for 12 years though.
It was for 8 years for the hotel, I think. And so I was just pointing out, it seems like just yesterday we built that hotel, but it's been 8 years and it comes up quickly. So, I mean, 12 sounds like a long time, but the benefit that we get from this in the long run of these properties being developed after that 12 years, I think will go way further than nothing happening now.
When I'm 37, you can all call me and we'll check back in.
Councilman French.
So I've been off for 4 years, so a lot may have happened, but when I worked for the college, I worked on a project that was going to convert 117 to a theater, and they discovered mercury in the water underground and all kinds of environmental issues that are going to be present for whoever develops those properties. But back then, it was my understanding that those properties were held by the land bank until such time as the developer decided to move on redevelopment. Is that still in place, or have they since, in those last 4 years, actually purchased those properties from the land bank?
So I can't assent to exactly what you said, but since I've been here, which has only been about 18 months now, yes, the land bank did transfer ownership of their properties to the Albion Reinvestment Corporation.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Arnold? Yeah, Councilwoman Wallace.
Thank you. So we don't have to do 12, do we? We can do anyone from 1 to 12, right?
We would have to,
Yeah, it's not, yeah. Councilman French.
yeah, we'd have, that would basically send the proposal back because their financing and their investing is predicated on 12. They did the math, crunched the numbers, figured out the best way for them to get the investment needed to develop the project and the properties. And 12 was the number that they came up with as the fastest way to get the thing done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Arnold?
I do.
Yes, Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So during that 12-year period, does the tax rate that they pay change at all? With the completion of the different phases?
No.
No, it stays the same the entire.
Yeah, I mean, unless they pulled the property out of that exemption, asked for that exemption to be removed.
Or sell property.
I could certainly get some answers from the state on if council has any ability to decide to revoke that. I'm sure they've got language somewhere on the revocation. I'm a little inundated with meetings, so lost track of that one. But if you are wanting to know kind of what your options out are, I can bring that information back. But you know, like Councilmember French said, and like I said, folks have been working on this for a number of years, and this would be a pretty 11th hour change to a project involving multiple funding sources and a lot of time.
So kind of like what he was saying, if they complete the renovation and they decide to sell, then that offer doesn't stay with the news owners.
No, I understand that. Just trying to get more clarity, more granular clarity on the actual topic. Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Arnold?
Yes, my understanding is that the 12 years really locks everything in, so to speak, in terms of the developer as well as the city changing its mind or something like that. So we know for the next 12 years, this is what we've agreed on.
Yes.
Attorney Harkness.
So in terms of revocation, I can tell you that the Oprah statute gives the following as far as an option for revocation. It says the legislative body of the local unit of government, which is the council, may by resolution revoke the Oprah exemption certificate of a facility if it finds the completion of the rehabilitation of the facility has not occurred within the time authorized by the legislative body in the exemption certificate, or a duly authorized extension of that time, or that the holder of the Oprah certificate has not proceeded in good faith with the operation of the rehabilitated facility in a manner consistent with the purposes of this act, And in the absence of circumstances that are beyond the control of the holder of the exemption certificate. So basically, if they don't rehab it within time, if they're not acting in good faith, or they're not proceeding in accordance with the act, those are your options for revocation. Otherwise, the city's locked in.
Any other questions?
Yes, yes, due to council member Wilm and also Davis and yourself. When you guys say that basically this deal is just locked due to the 12 years, I think we need to back that statement just a little bit. Because, for instance, if it was $50,000 that they would have paid in taxes in 12 years, this would not stop this development. This would not stop them from coming here. So I think we need to kind of back something is locked, like you're locking us to say yes, to make sure that this goes through. I think we're just trying to make sure we get a grips on what we're doing, because we did ask the public to come out and give their opinion, to give us some things to think about so that we're working with them. So we can't keep saying it's totally locked only because of 12 years, because they're gonna do this regardless. We might be thinking of, does it need to hold 12 years? Not saying that we want to stop them from developing.
Right, what I meant to imply with that.
Okay.
Was that this is not necessarily a guarantee if we tell them no. I can't speak on behalf of that organization.
Okay.
They've requested 12. I do not think there is a valid reason to not give them that 12. City manager, or I'm sorry, the city attorney looked up the revocation standards, and I think those are quite reasonable. I don't really have any more information to provide right now. I've heard the same concerns that you have, and I still believe that approving this for the 12 years is in the city's best interest.
Okay, I appreciate those. I appreciate those words. You know where I was coming from. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As we were talking about in the study session, that area of the building needs a lot of attention right now. Before it,
Okay.
yeah, has more damage. Any other questions? All right, City Clerk Domingo.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. At this point, we will open up for public comment. If there's anybody within the gallery that would like to stand and address council in regards to an agenda item, you have this opportunity, and we'll have 3 minutes to address council.
So my name is Albert Amos. I stay at 400 Baroque Street here in Albion, Michigan. And my concern, council, is with this renter's inspection. I own several properties here in the city of Albion. Just paid, I think it was summer taxes to the tune of almost $10,000. Taxes just went up. With owning rental properties, you also, if you have a tenant that decides they're not paying their water bill, that gets accessed back to your property, and they can go off to another property and create another water bill for another landlord. I'm thinking that landlords are being taxed to death. And so now we're talking about putting the new tax, i.e. inspection. I'm thinking we already have code enforcement, which should handle everything that we're really trying to do, I guess, with this new inspection tax. So, you know, I'm really against it. I don't know how many of the members here on the board own rental properties, but you know, maybe none of you, but you're making decisions for me. And I own quite a few of them. And this is being this will be a costly decision for me. I understand that about 40, maybe % of the properties in Albion are not personally owned. So that means that it's a lot of real estate that's possibly rented out. So it'll be a burden possibly on them as well. So yeah, I'm thinking on one end, we're giving tax breaks for 12 years, we're giving tax breaks for 8 years and that sort of thing. And then on the other end, we're taxing common citizens like myself. And so it's just not good for me. And I wish you guys would consider that. And when you're making your decisions, is this the best way? Or should we just take the code enforcement laws that we already have and just enforce them? And I believe we can accomplish, you know, maybe not financially, but we can accomplish the same thing. If the true concern is the buildings running down and, you know, no roofs and that sort of thing. And then I guess I'll say this too before I sit down because my time is running out. It's amazing that I can own a rental property right here and I'm going to be held, you know, to this standard with this rental inspection. But now this person right next door to me that owns the property themselves are not under that same obligation. So I just think it's something we should look at.
Anybody else in the gallery that would like to speak and address council? Specific to an agenda item?
Just real briefly. My name's Randy Burrett. I live at 808 North Superior. I appreciate y'all listening to me. I'm really sorry that y'all voted the way you did. I think you might have misunderstood. Somebody asked a question about the 1 to 12 years and the question was asked, we change that? And it was kind of, I thought it was implied that no, they asked for 12 and that's what we vote on, like it or don't. The last month when you voted, they asked for 1 month and you gave them, I'm sorry, they asked for 1 year, you gave them 10 years, right? At the same time that you voted. So you could have very easily changed that from a 12-year approval to a 1-year approval. And that would have been legal. And what you did was legal and it's wonderful. And I thank you for listening to me.
Anybody else like to stand and address council? Anybody else? No. All right. We're on to our consent calendar items. In your package, we have the August 15th study session minute, the August 15th regular session minutes, and the permit for alcohol in public places for the Kids and Stuff Museum auction. Oh, no, yeah, so do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Any questions?
One question, Karen. I'm not question. So when I looked at this packet, these different dates of when the application was done and then where you approved it versus also when the let's go to page 40. There's 40 of. Sorry, let's get this up. 40 of 113. You see that?
Yeah.
So you see where they signed on 7/13, 22, all that, and the notary did. And then you see where you signed on 7/11. Why was that?
Because I have to approve it first.
You have to approve it first, okay, and then the board approved it on the 12th.
Yeah.
Okay, because when I read that, it didn't read that way, so that's why I thought I asked. I would have called you earlier, but I spoke to you all day.
That's my understanding. of
Yeah, it doesn't
Because
read
if I
that
don't
way.
approve it, then there's no point in going to keep the board with it, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody can make up?
It could be a voice vote there. It's consent calendar.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. On to our items for individual discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the Brownfield redevelopment plan?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Amy Prince. Our president, Early, soon.
And as fast as you guys want to get out of here, I'm gonna help you out. Thank you. So we went through this process back in 2019, 2018. I think we actually approved the brownfields. At that time, there were several projects for Big Albion Plan, as you saw Dr. Shaheen allude to on his slides. Through the many years of working on this project, it's been determined that phase one should really be that 101 through 119, so those 9 buildings. So the Albion Brownfield Authority already abolished the first 2 brownfields that had to do with those buildings and set them aside. That's an administrative task. It's really just to keep it clean for tax collection. So we're here before you to ask for the combined plan to be approved. And as you will see in your document there, the TIF that's generated from that, so the tax increment financing that's generated that goes back to the developer is actually affected by the OPRA that you were considering earlier. They actually the ideal way of doing this would be not have an OPRA, because then the tax collection starts immediately, it goes back to the developer immediately. They're made whole much faster. With an OPRA, they're not getting much back in the very, very beginning. Matter of fact, they probably won't get anything back. So it won't be until that 12 years expires before the brownfield tax increment financing actually kicks in. So this plan is, and I tried to see it, but I did not bring my glasses. So y'all with glasses can look, probably will make me sick. But on the TIF agreement, it tells you how many years it goes out. It also specifies what we anticipate the OPRA to be and the tax increment financing to be. So all that information is included in your document here. Once you approve this project, we'll seek a reimbursement agreement with ARC that specifies how that money will go out to them, as we have done with every other brownfield project, and that will be on file. The one thing I do want to mention to you is from the discussion, and more than anybody, I understand the concerns about these big development projects, but I also understand the costs that go into them, and it's huge. And you heard Dr. Shaheen also say the price went up and they're trying to make the numbers balance, which is putting it off schedule a little bit. But the numbers went up from a very cushioned price square foot to even a higher number. So we would never have thought back in 2018 that it would cost what it is today to get this project done. The state has come in with full support for this project, but by doing that, they've asked Albion, what is your support going to be? Tonight formalizes that discussion. They want to see us fully committed and us be in the community if they are going to be fully committed. So we are asking for support of both of those incentives to make this project viable. Yes, it could take it off track. Definitely if the TIF goes off, it's off the table. We're going back to the drawing board. But each piece of that plays a part. I have to reiterate, it's the dream project that doesn't need to have that OPRA. And in the TIF just fills that gap that we need and complements what the state is bringing in. This project is a bigger lift than that. So I would ask you, I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm not reading my document to you. I trust that you all have. I'll answer any of your questions. But this is really an opportunity for us to celebrate. It's the first phase one project to come forward of that. And you've got 2 or 3 more to go, or 4, depending how they break them up with the state. But it's going to be a celebration for Albion to see that, your downtown be revitalized like that. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for Amy?
Okay, so the duration for this is 27 years?
It's 27 years, and that's by estimate. So we're very conservative when we do the tax increment financing schedule. So I think Chief Kip mentioned the hotel project was an 8-year plan.
The tax capture actually came in above schedule. So the developer was paid off this past year, and we're now on to the interest portion of that. So that one was much smaller than expected. So 27 is probably high, but it's the projection we're using with based to be conservative.
Okay, now, my understanding of the tax increment funding, or the way that it'll be used in this case with the brownfield, is that the developer spends the money initially and then they recoup over time.
Yeah, it's 100% reimbursement for eligible activities.
Okay.
And eligible activities is specified by statute. For this case, it's going to be demolition, and demolition just isn't, knocking down a building. It's walls, it's brickwork, all that. Lead and asbestos abatement, environmental remediation. So we talked about the possibility of mercury that was never verified, probable. That will have to have a vapor intrusion unit put in. So yeah, all of those costs that are listed in the brownfield plan with the cost estimated would be eligible activities. So at the end of them doing the project, they actually come back to the Albion Brownfield Authority with their receipts, and we go through each receipt and make sure it was an eligible expense. We certify those expenses, and then they go on to the city for reimbursement as the tax collection comes in. It's a long process.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
I mean, where does the tax capture go for those properties in general? Is like all the DDA?
So yes, there had to be an interlocal agreement with this one also, because those buildings are located within the Downtown Development Authority.
Right.
So the taxes will still come into the city, into the DDA. The DDA moves them over to the BRA. The BRA actually processes them out to the developer.
But normally the tax capture for that property goes directly to the DDA.
It would have gone to the DDA.
So it's not money that we're losing for fixing streets or
No.
other things. It's money that's not going into the DDA.
It's not going into the DDA, right? For this period, but you got to remember too, without these incentives, these projects wouldn't happen. They're just too big of a lift. So if we want to get to that point, there's a price to pay, and we're paying that price to get to that point.
Any other questions for Amy?
Thank you.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Reed,
Yeah.
Jackson.
Yeah.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Forgot.
Call me for God.
Davis.
Oh, call me twice.
You said Jackson twice.
Should I say anything?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2021?
So moved.
Recognize the friends of the Tecumseh District Library.
I'm sorry. I apologize. So moved.
Support.
Explain this.
Chief, yeah.
Is there somebody here from?
Wait, what?
Mhm.
It's supposed to be for who?
What?
And I was told that we would have that on the agenda.
I never had that, so I don't know. I have to look at Jill.
You know.
Yeah.
We don't have a copy of the application. We have nothing.
But it's not on the agenda.
It's from the agenda, but under a different name.
Yeah.
I think it was, here, communication. So it's our application.
That's what I was asking earlier. Who is this?
Can we just make a motion to change that?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
It's the gaming license.
Yeah, this is that filled out.
I didn't know I had to fill it out. I'm sorry. Cause I thought you guys had to vote on it and she would fill it out. But I did email it to her and I also emailed her our tax exemption status and example of our flyer, because we're doing a raffle here in Albion on the Festival of the Forks.
So that part was.
Just the name was wrong.
Yeah, the name is wrong.
Or maybe she did, so
I
we
mean,
don't
this
have
is, this is
anything.
just a form resolution that licensing and regulatory affairs uses.
To vote, you guys have to vote on our resolution in order for us to raise funds throughout the state.
So
So
So what's the
Councilman French?
process?
I just have, so just to expedite. It's not the Tecumseh District Library, it's,
It's Cornonia Faith Home, that's.
and where is that?
712 Hoagland Drive in Albion.
Okay,
Yes,
But you have
From the big
across,
park.
across from the, you want me to say splash pad?
Yeah.
So you're,
Got
it's that right,
got
right across the street from the splash pad.
can you, I'm sorry, can you spell the first?
It's
name?
KOINONIA, Faith Home Incorporated.
Yeah, they're registered as a valid nonprofit. Okay, so what, there's already been a motion, a second.
Yes, there was.
All right, so somebody make a motion to amend it, to change it to the,
Koinonia.
I'm gonna brutal the pronunciation.
So
but
I'll say, I make a motion to, and you say,
To amend the
I make a
name,
motion to amend the name. And I second.
to reflect, I'm gonna, is it?
Cornonia.
I know, she said,
Yeah.
Faith Home Incorporated instead of Tecumseh District Library, right, instead of Friends of the Tecumseh District Library. And then you vote on the amendment and then you vote on the main question.
And you have a second.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment first. So City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
French.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lawler.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. So now we're voting on the resolution. You have a question?
This will not change my yes vote to anything other than yes, but can you tell us a little bit about this home? That you operate? Because I know nothing about it and I'd love to support it, but I'd like to know something about it. I'm sure there are people in Albion who also know nothing about this home, so.
Well, it's a Dell foster care home. And the reason why we're requesting the gaming license is so that we can raise funds, because we're trying to scale it up to offer more services like that and obtain the property out there at 1000 West Erie Street. So we've been working with the land bank to acquire that property.
Nice. And so
It has existed for over 15 years here in Albion.
that's
Yes.
great. That's great.
It's very nice.
People.
Very nice.
Yeah,
I-
that's awesome.
Can I, I'd like to make a motion.
We already have it.
Okay, to approve. Oh, that's.
Is there-
That was the discussion.
That's
Oh,
fine.
He needed to know before we-
And so you'll be selling these raffle tickets?
That's
the festival that-
other events like that throughout the state to obtain the money we need to
Right.
renovate the property.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember French.
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Lawler.
Yes.
Davis
yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Sorry, apologize for the miscommunication in that, so, but thank you for clarifying for us.
That's okay. Thank you.
Alright, so we have,
We need to pull up.
a discussion on sending designated council member to the MML conference in Muskegon. I know that we kind of discussed this a little bit during our study session. Since I wasn't able to go last year, I would be interested in going this year. So, but we just need to make sure that that is agreeable to everybody.
How many I know there is one voting delegate, right? But other members can go.
I can't go this year. I want to.
Yeah, I would like to go as a newbie to, at least experience the structure of what it's all about.
How many people can?
Well, I think similar to last year, we didn't have,
We didn't have a number.
yeah,
You can go.
we would just
I'm
need
not
to
going.
have the budget approved.
I have to go.
Is there an issue with a quorum going?
I would keep it under a quorum.
Yeah.
Just to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, really.
Well, rats.
So I think the only other issue would be to make sure there's rooms. And I know that.
Yeah, you're not driving back and forth from.
Yeah.
Some good
if there's-
Airbnbs in Mesquite.
That the rooms for the function are also available, so we can definitely have our city clerk look into that for us and let us know. Is that,
There was very few today, and you can no longer get them at the block room rate. The end of September 5th, so it's full cost. So like $1,000 for 2 days.
I'll make that last night.
Per room.
so,
$1,000 per room.
You can go to Shoreline.
what was that?
We'll go to Shoreline. I looked at Shoreline last night, which is a little way, it's not that far from there. Just get into a different hotel. You probably can't get into one that's right there, but yeah, that's where I looked at. I looked at all of
So
it
yeah,
last
if you
night.
want to look into that?
Yeah.
Awesome, all right. So, do we have to vote on this?
Since it's all moved to the expenditure. Yeah. So I would recommend that a council member move to designate the following members and list them off
I'm
to attend the.
I move that Councilwoman Davis, Mayor Snyder, and Councilwoman Lawler be sent to the MML meeting.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Voice vote.
Does that change the cost then? I mean,
Yeah, that's what,
Yes, it
that's what
will.
we should talk about, is
Yeah.
changing the cost first,
Right.
because it's not 175.
yeah,
So you would you just amend your motion to be the. I don't know what it's not 175.
It's not 175. I mean, I got the prices, but it depends on when you're gonna do it before, so it's two prices.
So you could say a cost to include attendance and lodging for those 3
So
members.
I would modify my resolution to include the cost of registration and 2 days lodging, 2 nights lodging for the meeting. Not to exclude, not to exceed $50,000.
It's not.
Right down the top.
Yeah, that's what Mayor Pro Tem Jackson was saying, we could look at trying to find out.
Did you get that, Jill? Not to exceed $50,000. That means you're not quibbling over the price, just get it done.
So, Councilwoman Reed, you supported, correct?
Yes, I guess.
I meant on his amended.
Oh. Councilwoman Reed, do you want to support his amendment? Councilman French's amendment to,
To have the city cover the cost of registration and 2 nights lodging, not to exceed $50,000.
what?
Well, it won't be $50,000.
You already said a resolution. A resolution. Y'all said yes.
It's not a resolution.
Councilmember Friend,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Reed,
We're not going to $50,000.
Not to exceed.
Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2022-08 to amend the tobacco product sales and purchase.
Move.
We're getting punchy.
Attorney Hudson.
So, just as an initial matter, there are two typos. Just because when you type things in caps, apparently spell check doesn't work, but at the top, where we describe the ordinance, it spells tobacco with an A, and same thing in the bolded section 5822A. Those, I discussed that with Jill, and those have been corrected, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
What this does is the state changed the state law regarding the sales of tobacco and alternative nicotine products. For those of you who aren't familiar, alternative nicotine products are vape devices from 18 to 21. So what the ordinance does is it updates our local city ordinances to bring us into compliance with state law, such that you now need to be 21 to purchase those items, and similarly has penalties and requirements for those selling those products to verify that the person purchasing them are of at least 21 years of age. So it just brings us into compliance with state law. All of the penalties and everything for violations of the ordinance mirror the state statute, because we really can't deviate from that, and we are not responsible for any post judgment enforcement of penalties that the court might impose. That's all handled by the court.
Do we have any questions for Attorney Harkness? City Clerk Domingue.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Reed. Yes. Jackson,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
French.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. So next we are at our discussion. Spend up to 12,000 on sweeping street services. I guess we actually need a motion to approve because it does say discussion approval.
So moved.
Support.
All right. Chief Kip, you want to take it over?
As I stated, our current sweeper is down with about $5,000 in repairs. The question is, do we fix the street sweeper that we have? Do we rent one to try to sweep all the streets within 30 days? Or do we look at contracting a company to sweep our streets for us? I haven't been able to get that bid, so I have no idea what that might pertain. I do know the city of Howell and Garden City both use this company to do their streets on a regular basis, but again, I don't have the prices. So I was hoping to have better answers for you tonight before that. We were trying to get something in place before the festival so we could get the streets swept, especially the downtown area. I don't know if we can accomplish that at this point because the $12,000 would require at least 2 more bids on that to get prices. We can try to do that, but I'm not sure we succeed. So I guess I'm just kind of looking for direction where the council would like us to go at this point.
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
I did like the idea of that. Councilman Williams brought up about the leasing.
Yeah.
I would like to see the leasing portion, and then also I heard the numbers off to my right, they were kind of big for owning one. So if we just bring some numbers back, because I do believe, as you're saying, this 11.78 is not going to do what we need to do by the 17th.
Right. I also have been in discussions with Eaton Rapids city manager, our former city manager, about possibly making a deal borrowing theirs. So that's a possibility as well, but I don't know where we are with that. Huh?
Do they own theirs?
Yes, they currently have one, but she wasn't sure what kind of shape it's in or anything like that. So I don't know if we could even drive it down here, if it's capable of doing that or not. So I still have to, she had to get with their public services director to figure out if that was even possible. So that could be a short-term possibility for the festival, maybe for cleaning around downtown. And then looking at what else we can do for the rest of the city. So.
So that begs the question, does the city of Marshall have one? Does the city of Homer have one?
I had that discussion with Yvonne as well, saying, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could all go together in on one that we could share? And how many months do we get it each year and when do we get it? You know, and the problem we have here is we do have a limited time that we can use it because it's not year round. So it might be limited to 2, maybe 3 cities possibly going together, but we could look at that as well.
I was just speaking in terms of the immediate fix for
Oh,
festival.
for festival, right? Yeah.
Marshall's closer.
Right. As much as trouble we have with ours, I'm sure they have with theirs, and they might not be so keen to loaning it out to other cities and breaking it for them. So,
But if we paid them $10,000.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, that's something that I can look into, and if I can keep the price low enough, like below 5,000, I could make that decision for festival, and if not, I might have to come back to you for a quick meeting to make a decision.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So for the expenditure to fix or to repair the one that we currently have, it still would have to come to council before.
It's right around 5,000. I don't know if that's a budgeted item. A lot of my repairs on equipment can be done because it's a budgeted item.
Okay.
But I think we're holding back fixing it until we look at all the options. So that's not something I think we're gonna do until we provide you with other options.
Okay, thank you.
I guess so in regards to this monthly fee for the rental,
You should.
how many times would we be able to utilize that?
Well, we could as many months as we wanted to rent it, but I mean, you're still talking $12,000 every month that we
I
use
know,
it,
like,
so.
so within the month, that's ours for the entire month,
Right.
it's not.
Right. The problem with doing it monthly, and I don't know. We basically, I was trying to work this out with the company that I was talking to. We basically have 50 miles of roads, which means we have 100 miles of curb to do. And so you base it off that 100 miles of curb and how fast you can do 100 miles driving at like 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour that they go with that. It takes a while to get it done. I know last time we rented one, which was about 3 years ago, when Director Phillips was here, they drove that around the clock on shifts, basically 24 hours a day, sweeping the streets. So it can be done. It's difficult to do unless you got the manpower to do it too. So
Money.
that's why I said, I honestly, I think depending on the price, hiring a company to do it for us, not buying equipment might be the ideal way to do it, because then we don't have to maintain equipment or the people to do it, and they'll just come in and they might bring 4 or 5 sweepers and do it within a few days.
Oh, so that includes labor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's for the company that I was looking at. I haven't got quotes on that.
Oh.
This is not labor. The one, the 12,000 is just a rental,
Just
sweeper,
rental.
and our people do it.
So I guess I'm inclined to say, look at options if we have local municipalities that are willing to allow us to utilize theirs to address the issues before festival, you know, at least start that process. I guess if Eaton Rapids is amenable to us utilizing theirs, maybe we can put it on a flatbed. I don't know if that would work. To get
I don't know
it
what
here.
design theirs is. If it's a truck style, we could probably just drive it down here. If it's a sweeper like our sweeper, it would take a little more effort to get it here.
And then you have to call a special if it's more than 5,000.
Yeah.
Councilman Muller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to say, can we be mindful or we have a solution when the trucks do go out and sweep? Will they be sweeping the sewers? Fourth Precinct has a lot of sewers that are up to here with dirt. So just be mindful about it. And
Yeah.
if
I have one next to my house. I
anything,
know what you're talking about.
Ain't it? So.
And I think that's something that they're working towards getting on with the back truck and cleaning those out. Just takes time to get to those things, so.
So in light of this discussion, are you still asking for us to approve this, or are we tabling it until we get further action? What's the talk?
My answer would be to table it until I have further information at this point.
I move we table this.
Support.
It's table. A vote. No.
Got a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you all. All right, discussion on park rules. Mayor Brookham Jackson, you wanna?
I think they did put some of the information right in here that I wanted to discuss, and that was dealing with the ordinance as far as the music. And he said it was an amp. I didn't consider that as amplifier, but that is what's in the ordinance. My other concern was, are we making sure when someone comes and fill out this application for the parks, are we giving them this information before they leave out that door? So then we won't have all this.
Right.
Yes, and then the other thing that I don't like, please help, Kip, is that if we have individuals that come down here and complain, no one should go back and say I'm complaining Okay, that was a problem.
It's
Because-
technically public information.
I mean, it's public information, but no one has said that. I mean,
Right.
you just following the ordinance, basically, all right?
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Correct. Yep.
And that's just how I operate anyway.
Yep.
Well, this is what the ordinance is, so you should have your music, and this was told to you at this, but, we only do like, it's like you're going out there doing it just because these
Yeah.
people in the park
So.
that live here are saying that, but it really is. the
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah, so. As long as I've been an officer here, this is a new thing for me. I didn't know until last year that this was actually an ordinance, because it's never been enforced, but that's because we never had any complaints. And so it's complaint driven to a degree. And so now that we have complaints, we have to enforce the ordinance that we have on the books, or we have to change the ordinance. To be what we want it to be.
Right. So I'm not gonna say and ask for it to be changed, but they did do what they needed to
Right.
do, but I just think that we need to go
We-
above and beyond
right.
by giving it to.
We need to do a better job of advertising this for all the parks in particular,
Yeah.
because. For the sound amplification equipment, and this goes for every single park, you have to have council approval. And so people come in a week before they want to use the park to get a permit. Well, if we're not having a council meeting for 2 weeks, you're not getting council approval. So I don't know how we get that word out to everybody saying, hey, listen, if you want to use sound amplification equipment, you have to let us know probably a month in advance at least. Because that's the only way we can get council and get it approved.
Will that stop the police from
We-
coming?
I mean, we could just put a disclaimer on the application. And then,
Yeah, but the hard part is getting it out to the community so that they know they need that month in advance if they're gonna do that. I mean, because most people just come in and, oh, I can just get a permit and have it this weekend, and nope, can't. So. I just don't know how to get that out to everybody so that they know in advance.
Can we put the notice in the water bills? We got a water bill coming up
Yeah,
shortly, right?
that's a possibility. We just put a copy of the ordinance in there and just say, we're just advising the community that this is a requirement for these use.
Yeah, because you have another problems besides just this music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if
Right. Yeah.
I think if some of that goes into that water bill with that,
Yeah.
we'll have some.
Yeah.
They still not paying, we can keep going.
Right.
Something about
Yeah.
that, so.
Councilman Waller?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, as far as the park rules, the Victory Park Pavilion, I'm being told is something wrong with it. Are we just shutting it down for a while till we get the sewer fixed, or are we still renting it?
You know, Kevin?
The pavilion at Victory Park, the ceiling leaks every time it rains. The drains in that pavilion work perfectly, they're clean. However, over time, concrete in that big area has settled in spots. And that's where you have puddling or ponding when it rains.
Do you have a suggestion of what we might do?
Repair the roof.
Okay, besides,
And that's-
like,
and that's-
in the meantime, before we.
So my suggestion right now would be if we have a rain event or predicted rain event, don't rent it out. Or we bring in several employees with squeegees to remove that water, which it can be done, but it's resources on hand to do. And generally, those are on weekends or overtime for the employees.
Yeah, so you inflate the cost and you didn't cover it in the initial
Right.
charge, so
Mhm.
the city's at a loss. Pretty much,
Because we're paying overtime.
because
Right.
we're paying overtime.
And the parks don't pay by themselves.
Yeah,
Kind of like what we were saying, like if somebody wants to apply and you're, like we're saying, probably gonna apply a month in advance. You can't predict the weather. That's just gonna be a tough call to figure out.
Gonna rent it out or?
No, we could put a note with the people that are running it, letting them know the problems. And that there may be water issues that we can't deal with at the time. I mean, that'd be my suggestion right now, but
I guess
I mean,
maybe,
there's plans for it to be repaired, just how quickly that is gonna be, I don't know.
I will say the roof of pavilion is part of the Build Back Better
Right.
project, so next couple of years.
Yeah,
it'll be fixed, maybe even next summer.
Yeah.
So it's on the list. It's on the short list, in fact, so.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I understand what Councilwoman Lawler is saying and Councilman French, but if someone does rent it out and we're going forth with it, and I know we're paying overtime, we said that they will rent it out. I'm just asking that if we know this in advance, if we can get some men out there to help with squeegees or something to, just help clear it out. Cause
I think we can
they're
look-
gonna call us anyway,
Right,
so,
I think we can look to try to do
yeah,
that.
that's what I'm saying. Just try to get that done for them. I think that'd be appropriate for them.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, right now I have a problem with the parks because we sit down and made park rules that said if you urinate in a park, you're gonna pay up to $200 fine. And the bathrooms are not working in some of them. So we still rent them out to people and they have to pay the bill for renting the area plus buying a porta potty to put there so that people don't have somewhere to have somewhere to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, I do not see where that's fair at all.
I know there's porta potties in McCullough Park. Is the
Yeah,
city
yeah.
paying for those, I assume?
No, those
No,
are
that was
consumer
All
policy.
consumers, but those are.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know where they came from. I just saw them there. So. And maybe that's something the city needs to look at then is providing porta johns in parks where the.
They need to provide, them.
So
They're
it's-
gonna continue to
that's-
charge people for using the bathroom. I mean,
That's
using the park.
your job to.
That'd be a future item. But I'm-
Right.
We will, 'cause it's gonna need to be taken care of, because I heard that they did something out there to the new park.
Yeah.
All right, so discussion on purchase the equipment from McCullough Park.
No.
Andres, you want this on the agenda?
I'm sorry, I didn't put that on there.
You asked for this to be on the agenda?
Pardon?
You asked for this to be on the agenda after our last meeting?
Tuesday.
In the dark.
Oh, well,
Somewhat the
I didn't realize I was asking for that to be on there, but anyway, my discussion with that, because I didn't bring what I needed to bring then, is that I had said that if we were, if I was gonna vote for, I need to get that. For the money for that, then fine, and if I'm not mistaken, the agreement was that McCullough Park would get 50,000 off the first one. Okay, and so what I was saying then was, and I've already shared my stuff with Councilwoman Jackson, I got a quote because the pieces, some of the pieces that we need to put out there are at half price. So the play piece that is $37,000, we can get it now for 15. So I was
You want to
saying
put
if
it
it
on the next,
up until December.
you want to put it on the next
Agenda.
agenda?
Yeah,
And you can bring
because
information.
if we can do that now, we can have it stored where we had the other stuff stored and get it at half price. I talked to the people at the company. And after December, then they start with next year's prices and they go back up.
Colin, is this something we would have to bid?
Yes, it would be.
Ultimately, if the city's gonna expend that amount of money, it would be something we have to take proposals for. I mean, ultimately, if Councilman Reed's company is the lowest bid, which bid or proposal, in which it sounds like it's 50% off, then they would ultimately be the one that council would land on. But yeah, I mean, we should be soliciting for more than one.
Yeah, it's, I'll get the book back from Nora. It's Play World, the same company that we got for pieces out of Holland. But, and I got those at Holland, I got those late, so that we got the reduction in the price.
So then do we, maybe for the next agenda, we have.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
But do you have time to come see me tomorrow so we can look at those and?
I sure will.
Okay.
Councilman Friend, were you gonna make a comment? You good? All right. Staffing update.
Staffing as far as what staffing?
I think Mayor Pro Tem Jackson wanted
I
to
put
say
that
the
on
agenda.
there. That's what I asked about the staffing update. So we understand there's, we had sent emails or sent us about.
Oh, positions, okay,
And
yep,
so,
that was part of, I didn't really have a manager report because I was in the dark most of last week and forgot that was part of my job, but. One of the things in the manager report I was gonna announce was that David Clark, our new finance director, started today. So that position has been filled, and he began work today. I know Nicole was extremely happy to see him come into work today. We currently have the posting for the public services position, which we vacated on September 16th, I believe. And I know Haley's still kind of working on some of these things as well. I don't know if we have any other positions open in public services.
So you said public services?
Director. Patrick Miller's position,
Okay. All right,
because his last day, I believe, is September 16th.
correct, right.
So.
Okay,
Um,
now what about, the assistant managers?
yes, I know Haley had received multiple applications for that position, and has been reviewing them. And I think she's looking at maybe doing interviews here in the next month. So I know she's moving forward with that.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Kevin, do you know how many positions you're down in public services as far as hourly employees?
Currently 2.
I was gonna say no one.
I posted
2.
Two in the street department, yeah.
I posted 4 today.
Okay, so 2 in the street. What was the other ones you?
3, a utility locator, wastewater.
Take that back, streets, 1 full-time position. And a seasonal state.
Can we email this out?
Yep.
Yeah, please.
And then public safety up until today was fully staffed. And one of our new recruits was dismissed from the police academy, so he's no longer employed with the department. So we have one open.
So we lost that money.
No,
No,
it was one, it was covered by grant money.
okay,
And 2, I believe it was quick enough that they're not going to bill me for it.
okay.
I'm hoping. I haven't heard that for sure, but I'm hoping.
So, Yvonne, so how long is she supposed to be, doing what she's doing? I mean, how can we understand that just here? Because it was in the paper and I didn't understand.
Yeah, I don't completely understand it either.
I was like, that made no sense to me, because I didn't even know anything about it, and someone told me, did you read the paper? I'm like, paper about what? And I had to go get it.
So when we're hiring people, there's a lot of paperwork and process has to go on, and you have to know exactly what you're doing. And there's nobody here that knows that. And so Yvonne has agreed to work on those little details temporarily so we can find a replacement.
And that's what she's doing.
Yes.
She's basically an
HR piece.
HR generalist.
Yeah, I heard the HR.
It's difficult to find staff that have that experience and knowledge to be able to do those things.
All right, so we will get like something emailed to us that we can see. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Discussion on additional senior housing. Councilman.
Well, I was actually hoping we would have had some information to actually go over. We didn't have any, so we can.
Oh.
Mm,
I thought he said.
no, we didn't have no information,
Oh, okay.
so,
Alright.
we'll table that discussion till, let's say, the next meeting.
So you said you were looking for information from,
I was looking for information to see if we needed more, senior housing and at what price point. I know there's interest in development at the higher price point, and if that covers us as a city for what we need, that's fine. But if we need more at the price point that's adjacent to Maple Grove, maybe we need to look at Maple Grove and see if we need to make an investment there.
and who are we looking to get this information from?
I believe the Community Foundation did a feasibility study on senior housing. There's a group.
There's a group.
And there, yeah, so
That-
maybe we have to reach out.
Because French said he knew of something, and maybe someone Kip said, yeah, it should be some information. So
Okay,
I was hoping.
I mean,
that-
any information we can have to see if we need it at that price point.
Hoping. And he was like, yeah, we should. And he said, so, okay, ooh, Andy gonna bring some to the table.
I got you.
And they're currently visiting family in Atlanta, so they're not great.
You said he better not.
Better not, because it hasn't been made public, from what I understand.
Oh, well, that's why I mean, because I think we kind of streamlined that. didn't want the public to participate people just to give us some kind of idea of what was transpiring, because it's a lot that's kind of hit the.
I don't know.
Was
if
that
The committee representative would be willing to come and
That would be nice.
share a little bit.
So do we want a report or do we want information?
Maybe an update in terms of what is
Yes.
happening and the focus of that group. Does it cover everything you're thinking, or is that what you're?
No, not at all.
Information.
I just want to know, yeah, I would like to know, if we need housing at a price point that isn't currently being looked at. Adjacent to Maple Grove and the price point that they currently at.
So we'll look at getting that info.
I'll talk to Ian and see. That.
Discussion on DNR. Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
Yeah, so the presentation, I do thank Matt for coming out with that presentation, and I think we should go further into that by looking to see first if it's grants or basically first the pricing. What is the pricing first? And then if we need to get grants or if it's something that we can take care of. Because we do know who do go in that area. If we lived there, we would have a concern of those lily pads and all the vegetation coming up. And yes, many boats go out that area and many kayaks. And then also people are doing a lot of standing on the side, you know, next to the side of the street by the river. I mean, that bridge where they could really just be out in that park fishing, but they're not due to on that. So I just really think we should move forward on that.
So you were gonna make contact with him to get some
Yes, I will.
names. And then maybe we can look at getting something moving forward so that we can have some type of remediation before next.
Yes.
And I meant to ask him that, when was the best time of year to do this?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll ask that.
And if we can get some price points for some non-chemical remediation, I'm not a fan of dumping herbicides into the river. Really not. I mean, he talks about invertebrate impacts. There are, and what's acceptable is not necessarily environmental. So is there a way to mechanically remove, as Councilman Reed made comment that they used to do? And what's that price point versus chemicals?
And that's one of the things that he said too. They could physically remove it as well.
Exactly, and we'll get to both of those. So I'm not gonna look on just the chemicals because he did speak about the chemicals and it had to be special people that did it. So they would tell us what was feasible, what's not, what's good. So I agree with that as well.
So great, thank you for doing that. Future agenda items. I know we have some things that we want to bring forward. Anything else? Any other topics? Yeah, Councilwoman Reed.
Okay, one thing, I've had some people asking me about Washington Park down here. They like to fish down there, but the grass along the river thing is about this high now. They were wondering, couldn't that be cut? And then the place across from, okay, Blue Ox is here, right across the street where that big parking lot used to be. It looks real messy.
Oh, across from Dollar General.
Yeah.
Parking lot, okay.
And can that be cleaned up? And then I think we need to schedule a retreat sometime in October, just to work through some things that need to be worked through.
It was something else.
So to piggyback off of the lawn care or overgrowth, the building that the city owns behind the fire department, I think it's like a storage building.
And the ABA owns that.
Oh, the ABA does?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the ABA needs a fine for the overgrowth on the side of their building. Like honestly, nights, people are walking in the streets. On that side of the street.
We have an ABA meeting coming up. I don't remember when it is, but I know
It's Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. One of the discussions has been about tearing that building down at some point because the roof is pretty much gone. And so we can maybe add that to that agenda.
If we tear that down, all the store stuff, do we have another?
There's nothing in there right now. Because the roof is bad, there's nothing in there.
Councilman Friend.
Well, and to piggyback on previous lawn care, I I addressed the concern of one of my precinct members for Linden Avenue, the river side or the channel side is a 3 foot or so section that is overgrown and untended. And I took care of the first 50 yards myself with my own battery powered weed whacker. But I'm wondering if the city, I know we're down street people, if there's a more high powered, gas powered machine that can be brought to bear so that that bridge, I actually recaptured about 18 inches of street and during the 50 yards. And
I know last year, we did that last year, so I'm sure we can look at going down through there again this year.
That'd be great.
Yes, everybody is pointing to him.
Lucky you, new guy. Add to your punch list.
How is the cleanup coming? Has it been completed from the storm last week, or are there areas that, okay?
They done a great job.
They did.
They did. I mean, they was moving, did a wonderful job.
Just wondered, if you're behind, because I sent an email.
So the storm occurred, I want to say later afternoon, early evening, Monday, 8 days ago. As of Thursday afternoon, we had every street in the city open. Some of the holdup, reason it took a few days was we were waiting for consumers to get wires out of those trees. We maintain we don't touch anything that has wires until they give us a clearance. Our cemetery got hit real hard. We started cleaning that up today. Hopefully have the majority of that done tomorrow. Once that's done, where the community can access the cemetery, we're gonna go street to street, picking up the city tree debris that's on the boulevards. By estimation, after today, driving through town, I'm hoping to have that done possibly by next Monday. If we would have worked yesterday, I would have said possibly Friday. But I think it's gonna take a good 6 days of work to complete everything.
I've had a couple of people talk about 305 Mingo, because there's a tree down and there are wires that are there, but there is no one in the home at the house.
So to address the wires that are in trees currently that are off the streets, I've contacted Consumers Arborist. I've given him addresses of big branches hanging in wires, trees actually hanging up on house wires. I've given them every address that I have. And they are going to address anything with power in it. Once those lines are clear for us, we're gonna, if it's a city tree, we're removing.
Yeah, I'll send this to you in 305 Mingo.
Another complaint you folks might have with tree damage. If a city tree does damage a home, that's an act that's out of our hands. We generally tell the homeowner to get their insurance agent in there. Have the adjustments made before we touch it. Insurance adjusters want to see the real damage before we clean things up.
So future agenda items.
Future agenda.
Future agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
How about we email them?
How much you work?
How about we email them?
I know that's all right.
All right, public comment. Do we have anybody in the gallery that would like to stand and address council?
Come on.
No delays.
Very patient. Very patient. Yeah.
This would be a lot less than 3 minutes, which it would have been perhaps over 3 minutes, about an hour ago. Very quickly, I want to address Councilman Williams' issue that he raised on Thursday. I did get the answer later on Thursday morning. Presently, the state still has $700,000, $700 million. I apologize. We are what? $700 million to yet appropriate that we haven't yet appropriated. And we have another $100 million to appropriate in relation to DHHS connected issues, but we have $700 million yet to appropriate that can probably be useful to Albion if we could go back. It's remarkable to see you guys working because, as many of you know, some who I've told, we haven't been called back to session since July 1st. So it's remarkable to see all of you working diligently while all the state legislators are out campaigning full time. So I appreciate the diligence you're undertaking, and he's calling me to continue to get information. And thank you, Councilwoman Jackson, for inviting me. I encountered you at your son's on Sunday evening, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
700, I guess we don't know the question in terms of the 700. I mean, I don't know what the question was, but he gave the answer,
All right,
$700 million.
I'll give you the question.
Okay, thank
Kind of like Jeopardy, I guess. In fact, when I was here, I learned that the restroom is down in the very basement. So I was campaigning at Duck Lake earlier, and I used your restroom to change into a business suit kind of clothes. So we met on Thursday.
Yes.
To talk about how many dollars, we'll talk about many issues, but one of the issues was how many dollars are available yet in ARPA funds, COVID funds to yet appropriate. We appropriate a lot of those dollars finally back on June 30 and July 1 when we were there in an overnight session. But since that time, we haven't appropriated anything. Probably an incoming Calhoun County, part of Calhoun County, the western part of Calhoun County state senator is appropriations chair for the House right now. And he's recently made a statement that we may not appropriate any more dollars, or they might be appropriated in a way that they go back to taxpayers in some sort of tax relief. But we don't want to leave any of those dollars unused, because clearly that money is there to make improvements to, as we did in late June and 1st of July, parks and water infrastructure and other infrastructure. So that was the question raised during the meeting. We had these dollars, and Councilman Williams asked how many dollars, and I got together with my staff, and he got together with some policy representatives over in appropriations, and we got that answer. So, and I apologize, I didn't get your phone number's not on your card like mine is, cell phone. So consequently, don't do that, by the way, or everybody will be calling you all hours of the day. But that's the answer. Then I'm glad I stayed to give it to you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to stand and address council? Do we have anybody in? All right. Do we have a city manager's report?
One thing.
Okay.
So last week, we all met on Tuesday, and the city council agreed to spend $200,000 on the blueprint for a better Albion plan. That plan also needed to raise another $700,000 beyond that, and it was announced Wednesday morning that $700,000 was obtained. So the full $2 million match to the $2 million was obtained for the full $4 million for the blueprint for a better Albion. So that money was completely obtained, and $4 million going to all the improvements in Albion.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you.
Yes.
So made
Thank
a
you for the
comment,
update.
made the comment that it was last year at festival when we announced the gifts, and for us to be able to have a park fully erected within a year, and then to have that match done before the year ends out, that's a great accomplishment for Cedar Valley. Yes, Councilman Burns.
So speaking to that, I've heard, maybe it's only rumor that the splash pad has already been vandalized.
So I was gonna say, we need to put those backwards on the agenda. I didn't go look to see, but I was told that someone had took feces and smeared it all over, and I said, I'm not gonna go.
Yeah. And I was told citizens cleaned it up, but
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, correct. She did. Yep, she cleaned it up. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
there are cameras going up there. They're back ordered, so as soon as they're in, they'll be put up, but currently we do not have them.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's plans for cameras in multiple parks right now, including Holland Park, so.
it is good that we do have citizens that are standing up, they're looking out, they're trying to take care of the park and the equipment, so I do appreciate the citizens who are taking that task, because most people don't want to do it, but we do have people out there that are willing to do that for the kids.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. And Kevin, were you gonna make a comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah, our parks fully extensively there this morning. Yeah, there was families. One other thing I wanted to mention is that flash pad. Currently, the power store there is temporary. So there's things they did not complete with the bathrooms. Utility rooms, when they have permanent power, please. Then it'll be a good problem. That's the final phase.
Thank you.
Anything else on your manager's report?
No.
Okay. Council member comments, Mayor Pro Tem Jackson.
So I'm sorry, not as a comment, but for two future items to put on the agenda. One is to talk about the combining of the rec and the parks, recreation and parks. And then the other item would be to find out how much it would cost to put out porta potties in those parks until we're able to get those bathrooms fixed, because it's not like it's gonna go away.
To put out what?
The porta potties, whatever you want to call them. Porta potties. Yeah, porta potties out there in the parks. If you have just one or two.
Do we know what parks?
Don't have, is the Victory Park, is it still, is that open now?
I don't know if those are open. I know part of the money from the Build Back Better plan is going to replace or redo
Yeah, they
those,
redo them, but
but I don't know how fast that's gonna be
that's
either.
what I'm saying, so I think we need to look into that, so if we can look into all that'd be nice.
First of what
Yeah.
parks are in need.
I'm sure Kevin can get us that information.
What parks are,
Parks that need restrooms
Need restrooms?
Yeah.
that are currently not functioning.
Call is currently not functioning. I would also say, Macintosh is
Yeah.
may not be complete this year.
Okay, what about Victory Park?
Victory Park does have bathrooms.
Are they fixing, are they usable now
They're out there over the, bench hill, yes.
at the band shell? Okay. Now what about,
Holland.
Holland?
Has an operable bathroom, yes.
Okay, so we're looking at McCullough and,
Macintosh right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Macintosh would be brand new, it's just not.
Yeah,
It's out of our hands.
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And I don't know how long those three are gonna be at McCall.
Okay,
Right now, they're still there.
All right,
all right,
I'll get prices on that. No.
all right, thank you. Okay.
Council member comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on. I was gonna say that.
It's a
In
comment.
regards to the EDC, we have a new EDC president coming in.
Okay.
She'll be starting next Monday, I think.
Who is it?
Her name is Virgie Ammerman.
Oh, my goodness.
Virgie Ammerman has accepted the position. So yeah, she I think will be starting next Monday.
Okay, great.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Or.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned 9:39 PM.
Sorry, I had to listen to myself.
Man,